Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're tuning in from. Welcome to another edition of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace. This is going to be a breaking news story. A press conference should be commencing shortly in the updated charges for the Long Island serial killer Rex Heuremann. He's expected to be charged with a fifth and sixth victim. Sometime early this morning, I think Ray Tierney, the Suffolk County District Attorney, announced that he will go live to the audience on his Instagram right after court. Court started at 9:30. We all know that the judges take their time. We're coming on the bench. So as soon as this proceeding is over with, we're going to break straight to it. But I figured before we have the live press conference, we would get a little bit of a conversation going. And there was talk about two victims. Sandra Castilla, she was found decades ago, 3 decades ago, actually, 1993. And also Jessica Taylor. Those are the two that are discussed, and also Valerie Mack. But we don't know until this press conference happens what it's going to be. So right now we have 3 victims up on the actual thumbnail of this video, but we'll see what they say once the press conference happens. So I want to go to this. This is from Fox News this morning, and I want to just go full screen with this so you guys can listen to what was reported just about an hour and a half ago.
Rex Heuremann, the alleged Gilgo Beach serial killer, is facing more charges.
This kind of connects a lot of those pieces that we've seen coming together over the last few months, including the death of one victim found decades ago that was only recently tied to the Gilgo Beach investigation. Good Day's Briella Tomasetti is outside the Heureman home in Massapequa Park, Long Island, with the details. Briella, what are you hearing?
Yeah, Dan and Shani, good morning to both of you. So there are no investigators outside Rex Heuermann's Long Island home today, but one could argue there were certainly signs these new charges were coming. Police were here 2 weeks ago conducting a second search of the home, and back in April, canine units spent hours combing through a wooded area where 28-year-old Sandra Castilla's remains were found about 30 years ago. In a shocking turn of events, Rex Heuremann, the accused Gilgo Beach killer, whose name is now infamous on Long Island, is expected to be charged with not just 1, but 2 more killings today at a Suffolk County courthouse. Suffolk County District Attorney Ray Tierney declined to talk about those charges, confirming only that Heuremann will stand before a judge at 9:30 this morning.
We'll wait until the court proceeding.
According to Newsday, the disgraced architect has been indicted in the November 1993 death of Sandra Castilla, a Queens woman whose remains were found in the town of Southampton more than 3 decades ago. The paper says he'll be arraigned in connection with her killing and the July 2003 dismemberment death of 20-year-old escort Jessica Taylor.
I paused this here, ladies and gentlemen, is because this is coming from Fox 5, which is a local station, and they're reporting, again, the 2 victims that he will be charged with today is Sandra Castilla and Jessica Taylor. Valerie Mack, as we thought, because Valerie Mack and Jessica Taylor's torso were recovered, and other remains. Their torsos were recovered in Manorville way back in the day. And then along Ocean Parkway at Gilgo Beach, the remaining remains of their bodies were recovered, scattered along Ocean Parkway and Gilgo Beach. Many years later, when they started that search for, and that search started happening when we had our victim that went missing. When she went to she was a sex worker, and she went missing out there along Ocean Parkway and Oak Beach, and that's when that all started. But let's just take a listen to this quickly. Again, Fox 5, they're on it.
The paper says he'll be a disgraced architect has been indicted in the November 1993 death of Sandra Castilla, a Queens woman whose remains were found in the town of Southampton more than 3 decades ago. The paper says he'll be arraigned in connection with her killing and the July 2003 dismemberment death of 20-year-old escort Jessica Taylor. Some of her remains.
And again, Shannon Gilbert got the ball rolling in all of this because all of these remains were found after she called 911 and the Suffolk County Police started scouring Ocean Parkway looking for her. She was missing. And they found all of these sets of remains, 11 in all. And with this new victim, Sandra, we have 12. So there's still many more out there that need to be, we need justice for the remaining victims.
Remains were found in a wooded area in Manorville. The rest were located in March of 2011 along Ocean Parkway near those of another sex worker, 24-year-old Valerie Mack. No arrests have been made in her case. Heuermann was initially arrested last July and pleaded not guilty in the deaths of 4 women: Melissa Barthelemy, Maureen Brainerd Barnes, Megan Waterman, and Amberlynn Costello. Their bodies were all located near each other on Ocean Parkway and were the first of 10 sets of remains found in the same area between fall of 2010 and spring of 2011. He's been held without bail since then on first and second-degree murder charges. Last month, investigators were back in Massapequa Park carrying cardboard evidence boxes out of Heuermann's home. Law enforcement officials stopped short of saying, though, what they were looking for.
Thursday, you will see the fruits of that investigation.
Now, remember, ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to go back to when Rex Heuremann was first arrested and look at that press conference. But I don't want to confuse anybody, but we have about 30 minutes or more of time. We may even have an hour because Ray Tierney has his press conference set for 11 o'clock. But I'm watching on other outlets to see if, in fact, the press conference is live. But I thought I wanted to go to you guys. I thought to go to the chat here and let you guys know we have a great deal of time to wait. I'm monitoring it on my secondary device when that press conference goes live. How many of you would like to see and hear the press conference from when he was originally arrested back 10 months ago in July? I think there was a lot of information that Ray Tierney, the Suffolk County Police Commissioner, then Rodney Harrison, who's no longer the commissioner, and the task force. They talked at the podium for about 35 minutes. So I'm going to ask you guys in the chat if you want to watch the first press conference, which goes over how they closed the original first 3 victims. And those first 3 victims were Megan Waterman, Melissa Barthelemy, and Amber Costello. And then they added Maureen Brainerd Barnes recently to include the Gilgo 4. But it originally started out with 3 victims. Now it's 4 with the young ladies who I listed there. Maureen Brainerd Barnes, 25, Megan Waterman, 22, Melissa Barthelemy, 24, and Amber Costello, 27. If you guys want to watch that first initial press conference, I think it's got a lot of good information, and we're going to hear a lot of the details of how they came with mitochondrial DNA and all of the things with the burner phones and how they were worried about Rex Heuermann possibly killing more people current in this day and age in 2023. They thought that he was looking to solicit sex workers. So if you guys want to see it, put a 1 in the chat. If you'd rather not see it while we're waiting, put a 2. But I think it will be good information for us to listen to. But I'm going to just put this back to the beginning, and then I'll look at the chat and we'll decide if we're going to play it.
Gilgo Beach serial killer is facing more charges.
This kind of connects a lot of those pieces that we've seen coming together over the last few months, including the death of one victim found decades ago that was only recently tied to the Gilgo Beach investigation. Good Day's Briella Tomasetti is outside the Heuermann home in Massapequa Park, Long Island, with the details. Briella, what are you hearing?
Yeah, Dan and Shani, good morning to both of you. So there are no investigators outside Rex Heuermann's Long Island home today, but one could argue there were certainly signs these new charges were coming. Police were here 2 weeks ago conducting a second search of the home, and back in April, K-9 units spent hours combing through a wooded area where 28-year-old Sandra Castilla's remains were found about 30 years ago. In a shocking turn of events, Rex Heuermann, the accused Gilgo Beach killer whose name is now infamous on Long Island, is expected to be charged with not just one, but two more killings today at a Suffolk County courthouse. Suffolk County District Attorney Ray Tierney declined to talk about those charges, confirming only that Heuermann will stand before a judge at 9:30 this morning.
We'll wait until the court proceeding.
According to Newsday, the disgraced architect has been indicted in the November 1993 death of Sandra Castilla, a Queens woman whose remains were found in the town of Southampton more than 3 decades ago. The paper says he'll be arraigned in connection with her killing and the July 2003 dismemberment death of 20-year-old escort Jessica Taylor. Some of her remains were found in a wooded area in Manorville. The rest were located in March of 2011 along Ocean Parkway near those of another sex worker, 24-year-old Valerie Mack. No arrests have been made in her case. Heuermann was initially arrested last July and pleaded not guilty in the deaths of 4 women: Melissa Barthelemy, Maureen Brainerd Barnes, Megan Waterman, and Amberlynn Costello. Their bodies were all located near each other on Ocean Parkway and were the first of 10 sets of remains found in the same area between fall of 2010 and spring of 2011. He's been held without bail since then on first and second-degree murder charges. Last month, investigators were back in Massapequa Park carrying cardboard evidence boxes out of Heuermann's home. Law enforcement officials stopped short of saying, though, what they were looking for.
Thursday, you will see the fruits of that investigation.
And again, what he means by what Thursday you'll see the fruits of that investigation, what he means by that is that he's going to reveal, just like they revealed in a previous press conference, exactly what they did in April out in Manorville. There was an exhaustive search recently in April. And then at Rex Heuermann's home for the second time, we saw them searching for 6 nights and days, 12 hours a day, searching around the clock, security at that location. So we got Ed Wallace, who's going to come in as soon as he gives me the thumbs up. It looks like he's at an undisclosed location. So Ed, good morning. Thank you for joining. I know you're training, but your thoughts on what we're going to hear about this morning from Ray Tierney, District Attorney for Suffolk County.
Well, we speculated last night that it was possibly going to be 2 people, and it looks like it is.
Yeah, 100%. And the 2 people that we made mention of, we may have gotten it wrong, but one of the 2, Jessica Taylor, I said Valerie Mack, Jessica Taylor. Sandra Castilla, she was not talked about much in this case, but they did search along in Southampton. They searched along the area where she was found. She was from Queens, and it was in November of 1993 that her remains were found in Southampton, and that's where they talk about the search also that happened in April. They were not only in Manorville, but they went into Southampton. And that makes sense because she is mentioned as being one of the 5th or the 6th victim that he'll be charged with. I think yesterday you and I said it well. It doesn't matter who he's charged with. We want justice for all these victims. So until all 12 of the victims have somebody brought to justice, there's not really any true justice for these families. So they're all waiting.
As they say, justice delayed is justice denied.
Yeah.
But it now, if this is true, then he is linked to a dismemberment. So, that points me towards the other bodies that were dismembered.
And that was a theory that you came up with early on, Ed, and I can't overemphasize the importance of Ed's experience. He said 10 months ago when we talked about this case that he felt that Rex Heuermann started out with dismembering his victims, which is right in line with what we're seeing here early on, and then got tired of that because it was an exhaustive thing to do, and he got lazy. And maybe somebody might have even stumbled across him, or he had a scare where he thought he was going to get caught. So the potentiality for Rex Heuermann to graduate to just now dumping his victims. I hate to even use that word, but Megan Waterman, Melissa Barthelemy, and Amber Costello, they were not dismembered. They were in fully intact bodies wrapped in that burlap, right, Ed? I think Ed is frozen, so I'm going to remove him. Hopefully he comes back and he gets a signal. I know he's working with his phone. But as I promised, I want to play this. This is the press conference, and I don't want people to be confused by this, but this was the press conference from, let me just get the date back, 10 months ago. This press conference was July 14th of 2023. July 14th of 2023, ladies and gentlemen. This is a press conference from Suffolk County District Attorney Ray Tierney. Let's listen in while we wait for the live press conference that's going to be played today. So I'm going to put the volume up on this and play it.
This is breaking news.
Good afternoon, everyone. We interrupt Judge Judy. I'm Christine Johnson because we have news of the District Attorney of Suffolk County and also investigators giving us a live update on the arrest in the Gilgo Beach murders. Police took Rex Heuermann of Massapequa Park into custody last night. He is now charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder and 3 counts of second-degree murder. The District Attorney of Suffolk County is now giving an update on this case. Let's listen in.
Attorney's Office for the murders of Melissa Barthelemy, Megan Waterman, and Amber Costello. The investigation of Maureen Brainerd Barnes is ongoing. These young women went missing between July of 2007 and September of 2010. They were found in December of 2010 by the Suffolk County Police Department, and then there was nothing, absolutely nothing. For the next 13 years, their cases went unsolved until today. When I took office in January of 2022, I made Gilgo a priority. I made Gilgo a priority before I took office. I met with the victims' families, some of whom I'm proud to have standing with us today, and I told them that we were going to handle this case differently. We were going to do it differently. And that when I showed up, you weren't going to see me calling the media and being on Gilgo Beach with a giant magnifying lens looking for clues 12 years after the case. What I was going to do was I was going to work with my task force. We were going to form a task force. We were going to work with the Suffolk County Police Department. We were going to work with the Suffolk County Sheriff's Office. We were going to work with the New York State Police. We were going to work with our FBI. And we were going to form this task force, and we were going to work together, and we were going to use the grand jury, the power of the grand jury, to reach a determination in this case. Because the grand jury has 2 things: it has power, it has reach. You could obtain documents, you could interview witnesses, but the other thing that the grand jury has secrecy. No one knows what you do when you operate a grand jury proceeding. And we knew that when we were investigating this case and when we dealt with the media or whatever it was we were doing, we were playing before a party of one, because we knew the person responsible for these murders would be looking at us. So we were very careful how we handled the investigation. We maintained the integrity of the investigation. Most importantly of all, we maintained the secrecy of that investigation, and I think that's paid dividends as we've seen today. Now, I think that when we had the task force, the first thing we did, got together with Suffolk County Police Commissioner Rodney Harrison, and we formed the task force. Our first meeting was February 1st of 2022. And what we did, what all of the agencies here, we made the commitment. We were going to take our most talented investigators. So in the District Attorney's Office, we took ADAs, myself included.
Friends, I put a ticker along the bottom for everyone that might be coming in and that's confused about this. Let me know in the chat if the volume is good by just saying yes or no. I think the volume is good in my ear, but I want to know if it's good for you guys. So just say yes or no to the volume, and then I'll put it right back. So I have that ticker that's running along the bottom. It explains what we're watching, which is the press conference from July 14th, 2023, when Rex Heuremann was first arrested. We're watching this while we're waiting for today's press conference from District Attorney Ray Tierney. Thank you, guys.
We took analysts, we took detective investigators, and they worked on a daily basis with other talented investigators from all of the agencies here. We started that in February 1st in 2022. 6 weeks later, on March 14th, 2022, the name Rex Heuremann was first mentioned as a suspect in the Gilgo case. A New York State investigator was able to identify him in a database, and from that point on, we used the power of the grand jury, over 300 subpoenas and search warrants, looking into this individual's background to bring us to this day. So I'm proud. I know that this case is over, but I'm proud of what we've accomplished up to this point. I know we have more to accomplish, but I'm also thankful for the partnership of the task force, because certainly without the participation of the task force, we wouldn't be standing here. Before I thank some folks and turn it over to our partners, I just want to talk a little bit about the evidence.
I just want to tell you guys, in the background of this video are the victims' families. That is the family of Megan Waterman. The daughter is in the background, Melissa Barthelemy and Amber Costello. Those are the family members in the background, standing right behind Ray Tierney.
It's in the case. I know a lot of people know about the case. As I indicated, the victims went missing between July of 2010 and July of 2007 and September of 2010. In December of 2010, their bodies were recovered. They were buried in a similar fashion, in a similar location, in a similar way. All the women were petite. They all did the same thing for a living. They all advertised the same way, and there were similarities with regard to the crime scenes. All the women were bound at the head, at the midsection, or at the chest, and later at the legs. The other thing I think that that's been talked about in the media was they were bound by burlap. That has taken a life of its own in the media, and the burlap has been described or thought to be the burlap that's used at a nursery for. That's not the burlap that was used in this case. The burlap was camouflage burlap used for duck blinds of hunting. Obviously it was used to purposely hide the bodies. One thing that became immediately apparent was at the time of each of the murders, the murderer, the defendant Heuermann, he got a cell phone and a burner phone, which is prepaid and anonymous. And for each of the murders, he got an individual burner phone, and he used that to communicate with the victims. Then shortly after the death of the victims, he then would get rid of the burner phone. Right away in December of 2012, FBI CAST analysts, special agents with the CAST unit of the FBI, they immediately began looking at that cell site data. They compared the victims' phones with the burner phones, and they immediately honed in on some similarities, specifically in the Massapequa Park area. And they looked at an area of a confluence of 4 cell towers, and they realized that this had significance because the perpetrator of these crimes was probably located within this area at or around the times of the murder. and that was mapped out. That was called the box, and it was an area in Massapequa Park. The FBI also managed to do that for an area in Midtown Manhattan. And so that was an investigative lead. The other investigative lead at the time was, even though there was a significant amount of time that elapsed with regard to before the victims were recovered, there was some significant evidence recovered. Specifically, there was a hair recovered from Maureen Brainerd Barnes from a belt buckle that was around her legs. With regard to Megan Waterman, there were 3 hairs recovered from her, one from around her head area, one from around her leg area in the burlap, and then there was one caught in between the tape. And that was recovered. Amber Costello also had a significant hair that was recovered during the time of the recovery. But again, the crime scene, because it was out there for so long and because it was exposed to the elements, those hairs were degraded, so you couldn't use traditional DNA analysis on it. You would have to wait and use mitochondrial DNA. And back.
So this is something that was real controversial, the mitochondrial DNA, and they used the services of Ortham Labs in Texas to work on this case. That's confirmed. I know that for a fact. They used Ortham Labs to help them in this case. Who knows if we'll hear anything about it today, but this is some real science at work. And I want to know also, too, if they use the MVAC, that's the microbial vacuum system, to collect DNA from Rex Heuermann's basement. I almost feel, I could feel it in my bones that they use that MVAC inside the Heuermann home. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Did they use the MVAC? I'm going to have the president of MVAC come on with me probably tonight or tomorrow to talk about that.
In 2010, the technology wasn't there for mitochondrial DNA. So the investigation proceeded, but also technology proceeded as well. And then in January and February of 2022, we formed the task force. We began working collectively. And then a mere 6 weeks later, on March 14th, 2022, Rex Heuermann was identified for the first time. And the manner in which that was done was the New York State investigator looked at a database. Amber Costello, the day before her disappearance on September 1st, 2010, she met with an individual for the purposes of having him pay her money for her services. But she involved herself in a ruse where once the individual gave her money, and other individuals came into the house, pretended to be significant others, confronted the individual with the purpose of making that individual uncomfortable, having him leave without retrieving his money. And that's exactly what happened. So that individual was identified as a person who was between 6'4", 6'6", a large man, thickly built, not necessarily overly muscular, but just a naturally big person with glasses, white, and dark hair. Also of significance was that the fact.
And, we don't have to argue this. This is a fact. If, in fact, the Suffolk County Police Department pounced on that information that they had on December 1st of 2010 from Megan Waterman's boyfriend / whatever you want to call him, this case could have been broke wide open on that day because of the description of that green Chevy Avalanche and the guy appearing like an ogre. All of that was had by the Suffolk County Police Department, then corrupt James Slimy Burke. I feel that he covered up the investigation and hindered the investigation because he didn't want to be prosecuted. He's a dirty scumbag in my eyes, And this is what the district attorney is kind of scathing around talking about. But again, the powers that be that are in charge right now were not in charge back then. And I'm happy that they are doing their due diligence and bringing justice. But it's a long time coming, and it should have been done back in 2010. Shame on dirty, filthy James Burke. He's a scumbag.
Fact that he was driving a dark-colored black first generation Chevrolet Avalanche with a very unique feature that was between it's a pickup truck, so it was between the cab and the bed, and that was identified. Again, that was back in 2010. But it wasn't until March of 2022 that database was searched by the task force, and this individual was identified. That individual was Rex Heuremann, the defendant, and right away there were some commonalities that came right to the fore. Rex Heuremann, 6'4", largely a large person, not necessarily muscular, but a very physically large person. He has glasses. He has the dark hair, and also of particular note, he owned at the time that first generation Chevy Avalanche. But there was more. He lived at 105 First Avenue, which was located within that box area that the FBI first discovered in 2012. But there was more. Also, he worked at the time at an architect, he owned his own architectural firm at an address at 19 West 36th Street in Midtown Manhattan. And that was also the area of interest that was identified by the FBI in 2012. Again, that was March 14th, 2022. And from that point on, our partners and my office, we used the grand jury to continue to investigate, and we executed over 300 subpoenas, search warrants pertaining to this individual to find out more information. One of the things that we did is we followed him because we wanted to get an abandonment sample of his DNA, which we were able to do. We also got DNA samples, abandonment samples from his family. And then we went back and we got mitochondrial DNA testing. And with regard to, there's an aspect of New York State law that doesn't allow me to talk about DNA testing, specifically at press conferences. It's so I can't do that. However, at the arraignment, and also when we filed our bail letter, we talked about the significance of that evidence. So if anyone needs to see that, but suffice to say, that evidence was significant, especially with regard to the other evidence that we had developed. But it was there.
Did he just say especially? I hate when people do that. Especially, he said.
Was another interesting aspect. We looked at the Heuermann family travel records, and we learned that during the murders of the last three women, Barthelemy, Waterman, and Costello, that during the commission of those murders, the defendant's wife and children were out of New York State, and he was alone in the tri-state area. We also went back and looked at his cell site records, and we compared his personal cell site records with that of the 4 target phones, and we saw that there was areas of commonality. In other words, that whenever the target phones would bounce off a cell tower, if the Heuermann personal phone bounced off a tower, it was always consistent and in close proximity with the target phones. And at no time was there ever an instant where those target phones were, for instance, in New Jersey while the defendant was on Long Island. So that was completely consistent. The other thing that we looked at was we looked at his use of burner phones. And we followed, using the grand jury, using the great investigative help from our partners, we followed his use of burner phones. We were able to identify 7 separate burner phones that he used. We were able to use fictitious or fraudulent email addresses and get Google warrants. And from there, we got his searches. And we learned what the defendant was searching. In a 14-month period, he had over 200 searches pertaining to the Gilgo investigation. Not only was he looking at investigative insight, he was trying to figure out how is the task force using cell phones to try to figure out what's happening. What are the developments with regard to the task force? And this really supported our decision to keep our investigative focus secret, because we knew that this one person would be watching, and we didn't want to give him any insight into what we were doing. And we also didn't want him to know just how close we were getting. So we maintained the grand jury secrecy, and we maintained the integrity of our investigation. In addition to those Gilgo searches, he was compulsively searching pictures of the victims, but not only pictures of the victims, pictures of their relatives, their sisters, their children, and he was trying to locate those individuals.
Now, how sick is that? I see Ed Wallace is here listening in the background. I mean, I want to add us back on, but I'm not sure if he's got a good signal. You now hear Ray Tierney, the district attorney, saying that this monster, Rex Heuremann, who now stands charged with maybe 6, perhaps 7, we don't know until this press conference starts, but they're talking about sources saying close to the investigation that he's going to be charged today with 2 more murders. He was searching for the victims' families to try to seek them out. This is a sick man, and I understand 100% as a former law enforcement professional why it was so important for them to take him down in July of 2023, because he was a danger to society. He needed to be taken off the streets because he could have and would have killed again. So,
in addition to that, there was a lot of torturation. In addition to those Gilgo searches, he was compulsively searching pictures of the victims, but not only pictures of the victims, pictures of their relatives, their sisters, their children, and he was trying to locate those individuals. In addition to that, there was a lot of torture, porn, and what you would consider, depictions of women being abused, being raped, and being killed. In addition to all of that,
So again, torture, videos depicting torture, rape, murder. This guy is a very, very sick, demonic monster. What you're looking at, ladies and gentlemen, is the face of evil in the center of this photo. And I'm glad that we're watching this, because it'll lead us right into this press conference from today. And this gives you a good background of what the immense amount of work, the tremendous amount of work that the Suffolk County District Attorney, along with the FBI, we know that the U.S. Secret Service, United States Secret Service was involved, Suffolk County Police, Suffolk County Corrections, Suffolk County District Attorney's Office, Nassau County Police, New York State Police, and the list goes on and on and on for the task force, the Gilgo Beach Task Force. So kudos to them.
we continued to look, and we were able to determine.
And one other thing I want to add is kudos to the female New York State Police investigator who identified the green Chevy Avalanche So that I don't think that they publicly named her, but kudos to our females, our strong female law enforcement professionals who are out there. Ladies, you should be proud. I am proud as an American. I'm proud as a human being. But the female New York State trooper investigator who identified that green Chevy Avalanche, she should get the Medal of Honor because she took this demon off the streets.
That Chevy Avalanche that was used during the commission of the Amber Costello crime, that Chevy Avalanche was in South Carolina. And again, with the help of our partners, we were able to seize that Chevy Avalanche pursuant to a search warrant, and we're certainly going to analyze that. In addition to that, pursuant to the arrest of the defendant last night by the Suffolk County Police Department, we obtained one of his burner phones, his last burner phones. As I said, this case is not over, it's only beginning. We're continuing to execute search warrants, and we anticipate getting more evidence. Before I turn it over to my partners, I want to thank a lot of people in the room. First and foremost, I want to thank the victims in this case. You know, it's always inspiring as a prosecutor when you get to meet the victims. And while sometimes our defendants could embody the very worst of humanity, it seems that invariably our victims embody the very best of what it means to be human. And in this case, it was no different. I've gotten to know the families, and I'm inspired by them, and I'm impressed by their patience and by their dogged persistence in not only supporting their lost sisters or mother or daughter, but also really really standing for victims everywhere. So I want to thank them all so much. And I want to let them know that we're going to continue to work this case. The next thing I want to do, I want to thank our partners. I want to thank Suffolk County Police Commissioner Rodney Harrison. We said it was a change. And when we talked about, not going before the media, if you see, Rodney did go before the media, but it was always in a very controlled manner, and it was always with a controlled purpose. Again, we did that because we knew we were playing before an audience of one person. And so I want to thank Rodney for his partnership. Most importantly, I want to thank Rodney for his integrity. I think in the past, the reason why these various investigations fell short was because there was a lot of outside influence, a lot of people who had nothing to do with the investigation, nothing to do with the investigation or any of the agencies that were actually handling the investigation. They still asserted pressure on those investigations. That did not happen with our task force. Our task force was run by our members, and we did what we thought was in the best investigative steps and what was in the best interest of the investigation. So I want to thank Rodney for that, and his whole team. I know that we have Suffolk County Homicide here, Kevin Byer. We've got Inspector Rowan, and I know that they've been around, and I know that they're here, and I know that they stand in the shoes of their past investigators, and I want to congratulate them, and I want to thank them for their partnership. I also want to thank Sheriff Errol Toulon. Everything I said about Rodney, I could say about Errol. Errol is an unbelievable partner. He was an unbelievable partner in this case. During the pendency of this case, and one of the reasons why we had to take this case down was we learned that the defendant was using these alternate identities and these alternate instruments that continue to patronize sex workers, which of course made us very nervous. But with the help of the sheriff and his database and his analysts, we were able to continually stay one step ahead of the defendant. So thank you, Sheriff Toulon. I want to thank the FBI. I know Assistant Director in Charge Michael Brodak is here. I want to thank his entire team. When you have the FBI, not only do you have tremendous resources and insight, whether it's the behavioral sciences unit, whether it's CAST, whether it's CART, which is their computer unit, but you also have the ability to seize a car in South Carolina. I can't seize a car in South Carolina without the FBI. So thank you for that, and thank you for your partnership, and thank you for your willingness to work with us. I want to thank the New York State troopers. I know Major Udis is here and his team. This case is emblematic of great cooperation, but we always get that same level of cooperation from the state police, no matter what case we're working. So I want to thank them. Their investigators did great work on this job and in this case, and we couldn't have done it without them. Lastly, I want to thank Nassau County Police Commissioner Pat Ryder. I don't know if he's here. Did he make it? This case, as I said, spans 13 years, and during that time,
maybe you guys didn't catch what was said there. He asked where the Nassau County Police Chief Commissioner was, if he was there, and he went and looked for him. And Pat Ryder said, "Yeah, I'm here. I'm just not tall." So he's a short guy. So he was basically saying, "You can't see me over all these people, but I'm here."
Pat Ryder has been our neighbor to the west. When it started, I think he was a sergeant, detective sergeant, maybe uniform sergeant, but whatever. Whenever we needed something to be done, or whenever the task force needed something,
he was a former NYPD.
Pat Ryder would do it,
too.
and he would do it quietly, without much fanfare, and we know he would keep the confidentiality of our grand jury and our investigation. So I want to thank him for that. And with that, I will turn it over to Commissioner Rodney Harrison.
Before we go any further, I'm getting a live feed at the podium. As soon as they come out, I will switch right to that live feed. But it looks like they're getting ready for the press conference. I'm going to play a little bit more of this, and I'm monitoring it with my other eye. So bear with me. As soon as they come out, I'm going to switch right to that feed. Ladies and gentlemen, it looks like it's going to be momentarily happening. So I'm keeping a close eye on it for you. If you appreciate this kind of coverage, please hit the subscribe button, hit that like button. So this way you'll get all things DutyRon and Ed Wallace covering breaking news. Again, I'm at work, so I'm running around, going in and out of my office. So sometimes I'm here and sometimes I'm not, but I'm going to stay right at the screen, at the monitor, and watch this closely. Suffolk County former Commissioner Rodney Harrison. This guy's a class act. Watch what he does here.
Good afternoon. Today is a good day. And before I acknowledge the individuals that had a role in getting to this place, I would first and foremost like to offer my deepest condolences to the family members. To the family members of Amber Costello, Melissa Barthelemy, Megan Waterman.
Class act right there.
I can only imagine what you had to endure over the last decade regarding knowing that your killer was still loose. God bless you.
He proceeds to go over and hug them. This newscast left the pictures of the victims up, but Rodney Harrison is hugging their family members right now. There you go.
So I've had the privilege of being the police commissioner. It's nearly about 2 years now. And I have had that investigative experience in the NYPD as a detective, as the chief of detectives. And when I was going through the process of being the police commissioner, my engagement with the county executive was I was very familiar with this unfortunate homicides. And I wanted to let it be known that this was going to be our #1 priority. But I also want to make this very clear that this arrest was made by the investigators assigned to the task force. I announced during a press conference 18 months ago about a new team effort that was going to investigate the homicide, and that was going to consist of people from Ray Tierney's office, from Mike Broddock, FBI. Mike, thank you so much. State Police, Steve, appreciate your support. Dr. Earl Toulon, Jr., thank you, sir. As well as the investigators from the homicide detectives in Suffolk County. Gentlemen, thank you for all you've done, working together with us, making sure we are here today. I also want to thank my partner, Pat Ryder. Pat, good seeing you, man. And former NYPD Police Commissioner, Keyshawn Sewell, for providing resources to assist in the investigation that brought us here today. So one of my first acts was to serve.
NYPD worked alongside Suffolk County in this case because Rex Heuermann's office, and he used his office was in downtown in Manhattan. He used his office as a way to lure some of the sex workers in the early goings. And I won't be surprised if we hear that, you know, some stuff might have occurred inside the office of Rex Heuermann where he conducted his architect business. All right, I'm going to go to the live feed right now, guys. So give me a second. Give me a second, folks. Just want to see if News 12 has that live feed. They're pretty good with this. Okay, News 12. They're not talking yet. They're not at the podium yet. If you saw what I have going on here right now, I have multiple devices monitoring multiple different things. It's crazy. It's crazy what DutyRon's got going on right now. 5. 2 seconds, friends.
Breaking news on Newsday TV.
All right, here we go, folks. Give me 2 seconds. Newsday TV. Thank you, Newsday TV.
To try to figure out what's happening.
Nothing yet, guys. Nothing yet. Nothing yet. Okay, just monitoring on a secondary device. A bunch of people coming around the podium. I got JB WFLA. He's got the live feed in there. So never fear. DutyRon is here. I got JB up on the screen.
This is a very complex puzzle that snapshots of the documents on Twitter that has popped up, including some saying that he's in the 99.99 percentile of a positive DNA match. And so it's adding up with each individual victim in this case. But my goodness, how many more victims are there?
So I'm going to just listen. It looks like they're at the DA's office or at somewhere in a private room outside the courthouse or within the courthouse. I mean, I'm trying to get a look at this location, but who knows? It might be at the district attorney's office. So we're waiting the arrival of everyone to come up to the podium. I saw some state police come out, and again, I'm going to go to my notes real quick because this is what we're looking at. The potential for 2 additional victims. Now, remember, there's a total of 11, arguably now 12 victims along Ocean Parkway in Suffolk County. Remains recovered of 12, including a toddler, Peaches, and the unidentified toddler as well. they all need to have justice. And I know that seems kind of like, hey, why aren't they looking at these cases as well? I guarantee you they're looking at these cases, ladies and gentlemen. It's just so complex when you have that amount of time and the DNA and the science. These cases are solved based on science because of the amount of time that passed. But look, we have Maureen Brainerd Barnes, we have Megan Waterman, Melissa Barthelemy, Amber Costello, and now we may have Sandra Castilla and Jessica Taylor. Their families could be getting justice today, and Valerie Mack as well. We hope and pray that all three get justice today. But as I said yesterday with Ed Wallace, I mean, justice for just one more family, in my book, is making progress. But until they get justice for all the families, this investigation cannot stop. And the Suffolk County secret grand jury process is good. All right, here we go, folks. Here we go.
We are going to start here on time, which of course I know we all appreciate, and it looks like it is going to be an entire team represented, as you would expect. Think about all the investigators, the countless hours that have been poured into this case. I would guarantee you that the investigators that you see here are the ones who have been working on this case. They're standing up here for good reason, flanked by Suffolk County DA Raymond Tierney, to be able to get credit for their extended work over many.
All of the team members that are involved in the Gilgo Beach and the Suffolk County Task Force, including the federal partners of the FBI, the Secret Service, the New York State Police, the Suffolk County Corrections Department, the District Attorney investigators, who I have one of my friends who I was a detective with that worked with me in Florence. He is on that squad, and others from the NYPD. There's also NYPD personnel involved in assistance in the search out in Manorville. We saw, and how many of you are in the chat remember this, in Manorville, we saw an NYPD canine female police officer with the dogs. She was out in Manorville in April, just a month and a half ago, in April, looking for and searching for remains. Now, we know the Suffolk County medical examiner's office responded to Rex Heuermann's home. So there'll be representatives at this press conference from the Suffolk County medical examiner's office and their DNA lab. They have one of the finest DNA labs in New York, in Suffolk County. It's probably second to the New York City Police Department's DNA lab. Coincidentally, our good friend Ed Wallace worked in the DNA lab in the NYPD with Barbara Butcher. So she hired him. She was his boss. They worked together. So folks from New York City, folks from Suffolk County, Ed, I see he keeps trying to come in. I don't know if he's got bad connection. If he's just listening, then that's fine. If he gives me the thumbs up, I'll add him. Okay, he gave me a sideways thumb, so I'm going to add him in. Yeah, Ed, we're talking about the personnel that are here that we're seeing on the screen. I don't think I was too far off that, the medical examiner's office, they have a team that's involved in this task force as well, right?
Say again?
Suffolk County medical examiner's office, their DNA lab and their crime lab, they have a team that's assigned to this task force, no?
Yes. And the state lab is assisting as well.
Right. So we're just looking at some delays at the podium. I think I'm going to stay with WFLA because they get some good feeds, but I am monitoring other feeds locally because sometimes the audio, I'm just planning for the worst to happen here. If the audio is bad, I want to go to another feed. So I'm going to be watching. Ed, if any commentary on what you're seeing, somebody's suits in, nobody's in uniform. You see a lot of
all
suits.
hands on.
Yeah.
Look like it's all hands on for the press conference, representing all members of the task force and everybody that responded on the warrants.
Absolutely. And I just have my head down because I'm just searching for a different feed in case this one is not good audio. So let me look at News 12. You're in the middle of training there, Ed?
No, end.
End. Okay, great. Oh, that's right. It's the end of the day. What am I thinking? So yeah, you were looking at a live look into the podium, and I had just gotten to the part in the first press conference that was really good when former Suffolk County Police Commissioner Rodney Harrison got to the podium, and he was hugging the victims' families, and he was, acknowledging their the tough road to justice for them. And I thought that was really a great part of the press conference back in July. I think that press conference was just the day after, on July 14th. He was collared on the 13th, and that was the day after. But I thought it was a class act, and it was something that you don't see that often in big metropolitan police departments, where a police commissioner goes and hugs the family members, the victims' families.
Yes. Yeah, I remember commenting on it, both of us, how we really appreciated that.
Got live. Final mic checks here. Heartbreaking and terrifying. Sending prayers and strength to families, and a thank you there, of course. And of course, you can always go to our website if you want to submit stories that we should be covering here from the Stream Center as well.
And I know you got a lot of background noise there. Newsday TV's got a feed as well, so I'm just going to keep this running with the.
Yeah, mute my mic.
Okay, I'm going to mute your mic. Do you want to just be listening, or do you want to be on the air with me? Okay, on the air, or just listen?
I'll just listen, and then when I want to say something, I'll give you a thumbs up.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so I'm going to mute Ed Wallace's mic because he's got a lot going on in the background there, and he's just like you guys in the chat. He's just going to be watching and listening.
Cameras or video cameras.
Let's listen to JB for a minute.
Live stream Heuermann's appearance this morning. I believe that still images might come to reporters in New York, figuring out just some of what investigators have used to get to this stage in the investigation.
But just so you folks know, Newsday TV is live. I see they have a mic at the podium. If this audio is bad,
filing in here, whether you're on WFLA.com, the WFLA app, Facebook, or
if the actual audio feed is not good here, I have a second. I'm always thinking ahead, so I have a second one in the hopper.
I'm so used to it.
Her head, hands, and forearm were found along Ocean Parkway in 2010. Again, we are waiting for the DA to approach the podium. As soon as he gets there, we will take this live for you. In the meantime, we'll continue to tell you about the case here. Costello, was 28 when she was killed in 1993. She lived in Queens. Her death was not tied to the Gilgo Beach investigation until canine units searched North Sea. We've talked about that in our coverage, where her remains have been found that year, or this year rather, in April. Costello's death was actually linked to another case involving convicted murderer John Bitroth, which we have done extensive investigations on. Now, unlike the other alleged victims in the case, law enforcement have not described Costello as a sex worker. Again, We are waiting for the DA to approach the podium. As soon as he gets here, we will take this live for you. More information about Jessica Taylor. She was 20 years old when she was reported missing. She grew up upstate and lived in New York City before she disappeared. She was, in fact, a sex worker, reportedly in a relationship with a man believed to be her pimp. Her remains were identified in part by a tattoo that included that man's name, so that's how they were able to identify her. Her torso was found in Manorville after that 9-day search in April that we reported on. Tierney said that the Manorville search and second search of Heuermann's home was a necessary step in this investigation. He told reporters on Thursday that, you will see a fruit of that investigation. And we later learned about a bombshell in the investigation, and he will also touch on that momentarily. Heuermann previously pleaded guilty to killing 4 women: Megan Waterman, Melissa Barthelemy, Amberlynn Costello, and Maureen Brainerd Barnes, whose remains were found on Gilgo Beach in 2010.
I'm gonna switch to JB's. I'm gonna switch to JB's link.
Found. Again, we are waiting for the DA to approach the podium to get the latest on the investigation. If you're just joining us right now,
live across all platforms on Hey JB Live.
Hey JB never fails us, so his link was a little stronger. Newsday TV was coming in a little wonky. I didn't like the signal. Let me know in the chat if you saw that. It was getting a little fuzzy, and I said this is not going to be good. Here's some of the victims' families, along with attorney Gloria
Just as we
Allred.
noted about 15 minutes ago, some DAs like to give an opportunity to family members of victims to speak. That's what appears to be taking shape here. So we'll see. Sometimes they just want.
Absolutely. You can see some of the family members that were in the press conference that I was showing back from July, folks. Some of those family members are in the background. This bald guy back here, this woman, some of the faces look familiar from the presser that we were showing before.
Good morning. Thanks everyone for coming.
Of course, the audio is no good.
Logistical issues in the rain. We appreciate it. We're here today to announce additional charges in the case against the defendant Rex Heuremann. Obviously, at the onset, I will say these are just allegations. The indictment has just been filed. This is a case court proceeding, and each and every one of these allegations have got to be proven in court, and we certainly look forward to doing just that. Today, as you've just seen, the District Attorney's Office filed a superseding indictment charging the defendant with 2 additional murders. Those charges pertain to the 1993 murder of Sandra Castilla and the 2003 murder of Jessica Taylor. So that's in addition to the previously charged murders of Maureen Brainerd Barnes, Melissa Barthelemy, Megan Waterman, and Amber Costello, which occurred in 1997, 1999, June of 2010, and September of 2010, respectively. So my intention now here today is to discuss those charges, discuss the contents of the bail letter, and then turn it all over to you all for questions. But before I do that, before I discuss the indictment and the developments in the case, I want to thank our law enforcement partners, many of whom are here today. First and foremost, I want to thank the Suffolk County Police Department. My understanding is Commissioner Waring was unavailable today. I spoke with Rob, but he certainly brought a contingent of Suffolk County PD to represent his office. We have Deputy Police Commissioner Kevin Catalina. We have Chief of Detectives Daryl Simmons. We have Deputy Chief Stan Grodsky. We have, and then we have the Commanding Officer of the Major Crimes Unit, which includes the Homicide Unit, Sean Barron. So we want to thank all of them for their partnership. We want to thank the Homicide Unit for their continued efforts in this case. We have the Suffolk County Sheriff's Office here. Again, spoke with Sheriff Toulon. He's traveling out of state, so he couldn't make it. But it's my understanding that Under Sheriffs Steve Kios and Keith Taylor are here. We certainly want to thank them for their assistance as well. With the New York State Police, we have Major Stephen Udis, as well as Lieutenant Ken Gine. Again, we thank them not only for their presence here today, but more importantly, for their partnership in this case. We have the FBI, Supervising Special Agent Don Ansbacher is here. I want to thank the FBI for their continued assistance in this case. And then I don't believe they're present, but we have we want to thank the United States Secret Service for their assistance in this case. We want to thank the Suffolk County Crime Lab. I know they're not here, but their work has been tireless and instrumental, and we are really very appreciative to them. I especially want to thank the K-9 units from the New York State Police, from the Suffolk County Police, and from the NYPD, who came out a couple of weeks ago, and in very difficult conditions. They really did a fabulous job helping us to search an area of interest to us. And, they went above and beyond. So again, I want to thank them. I frequently neglect to thank my own team, so I'm going to take the opportunity to thank them. We have, Chief Zacharies. We have, I want to thank them. I want to thank our ADAs, many of whom are working on this case. You heard from Nick Santamartino. We've got Larry Opizzo. We got Andrew Lee. We got Michelle Haddad. We've got a whole host of ADAs that have really been instrumental in us. Our investigators, our analysts, really fantastic work that they've done. I want to thank the victims' families, many of whom are here today, not only on the new charges, but for the original Gilgo 4. And this is what this case is about. We don't ever forget that. This case is about the victims and their families, and hopefully providing them with that small measure of closure. And the families have been nothing short of incredible. The way that they continue to support their loved ones and each other is really inspiring to us, and really helps us to keep coming in and working this case as aggressively as we've been doing. This case is a true collaboration, and again, mentioning all of those partners, without the contribution of any one of those partners, our ability to do this case would have been severely compromised. So again, I know I mentioned a lot of names. I know I went through a lot of agencies, but I just don't do that because it's the polite thing to do. I do it because it's the right thing to do, because they've really helped us instrumentally and will continue to help us going forward. Now, I'll just, before I get into the individual murders, the two new charges, what I want to talk about is at the time of the initial arraignment of the three out of the four Gilgo 4, and then at the superseding arraignment on the charges pertaining to Maureen Brainerd Barnes, and the Gilgo 4 was completed. At that time, we said that we were going to continue to investigate this case, that the grand jury with regard to the Gilgo 4 is over, but the case continues. The criminal prosecution continues, but the investigation continues, and that investigation has been expanded. The investigation has been expanded both to the bodies that were found on Gilgo and beyond. That's what we said. And I think that has come to fruition today with these two new cases or new charges. First off, with regard to Jessica Taylor, that her body was recovered on July 26, 2003, off of just west of Halsey Manor Road in Manorville. She was found on her back. She was decapitated, and her hands and arms were severed just below the elbows. Notably, a tattoo that she had been obliterated with a sharp object. 8 years later, her arms and skull were found on Ocean Parkway. Those remains were found on the same side of the road on the Ocean Parkway as the Gilgo 4. They were found less than a mile away from the remains of the Gilgo 4, and all of the 5 remains were located within 50 feet of the roadway. And I think you see that the graphic on page 5 of our bail document illustrates that. Jessica Taylor was last seen July 19th in New York City. She was working as a sex worker. We know from from our investigation, from a number of financial records and other records, that the defendant, Rex Heuremann, was in New York City on July 19th. Jessica Taylor last spoke to her mom on July 21st, and then that was about 8:41 p.m. Then less than 2 hours later, her phone call made its last outgoing call, and we heard no more from Jessica or from her phone. The family alerted law enforcement on July 25th when she failed to return to her home for her mom's birthday. And then shortly thereafter, on July 26th, Jessica's body was recovered. At that time, the Suffolk County PD did canvass. They spoke to witnesses, and the witnesses had observed the night before, about 13 hours prior to the 911 call, they saw a dark-colored pickup truck backed up in the vicinity of off of Halsey Manor Road, where Jessica's body was eventually recovered. Computer activity by the defendant, which we were able to access through our search warrants, indicated that 2 days later, on July 28th, he accessed a Newsday article with regard to information on the case and with regard to the police looking for information on the case. That search was erased, but we were able to recover it. 1 day later, on July 29th, notably, the defendant was seeking to purchase a new Chevy Avalanche truck, notwithstanding the fact that he already had a dark-colored Chevy Avalanche truck, which was only approximately 4 months old at the time. The Chevy Avalanche truck, which we've been discussing all along, is dark-colored. His internet search related to the acquisition of the same Chevy Avalanche truck, but this time in white or bright blue, bright-colored truck, completely different from the dark-colored truck that he'd been riding in. And again, once again, that purchase with regard to the new trucks, that was attempted to be obliterated. We spoke, and Nick Santamartino did the bail application, so I don't want to repeat all that Nick said, but with regard to the hairs found in this case, Jessica Taylor was found laying atop a surgical drape. A male hair was found between the body and the drape. That was recovered back in 2003. In 2023, we brought that hair was brought to the mitochondrial testing lab for mitochondrial DNA analysis, and was able to the result. 99.96% of the population, but not Rex Heuremann, the defendant. Then again, later in 2024, we brought to a second lab for testing. And once again, the result was the defendant could not be excluded as the donor of that hair, and it's 1.837 times 10 to the 603rd power more likely that it came to that it matched the defendant or someone matching the defendant's DNA profile than a member of the population at large. And that number, just so it's 1.837 times 10 to the 603rd power. So what you do is you take that 1.837 and you move that decimal point over 63 places and add zeros. That's the number. That number doesn't exist. It's so big. Among other things that we were able to establish with regard to the murder of Jessica Taylor was, once again, family travel. We were able to determine that at the time of the disappearance and death of Jessica Taylor, once again, the defendant's family was out of the state. They were staying at a resort known as Smuggler's Notch in Vermont. We were able to corroborate that information through witness statements, photos, and phone and financial records. In addition, there was a hard drive that backed up to a Palm Pilot, which was the defendant's date book. And in that, and again, this is chronicled in the bail application, but in that date book, it's indicated that his wife is in Virginia at Smugs from July 20th through July 27th, and that's page 14 of the bail document. With regard to the 1993 discovery of Sandra Castilla, again, on November 20th, 1993, two individuals while hunting in that wooded area of Southampton in the vicinity of Old Fish Cove Road in North Sea discovered her body. She was lying on her back with her arms outstretched over her head. Her legs were uncovered and her shirt was pressed over her head. The victim suffered numerous sharp force injuries, 25 in all, which we believe were post-mortem. And these were injuries to her face, torso, breasts, left thigh, and in her vaginal area. Once again, we had hairs recovered from Sandra Castilla. This is chronicled in the bail application. There were two hairs from Sandra Castilla's remains that are of particular significance in this case. One was a female hair that was recovered from the victim's right arm, and one was a male hair that was recovered from a tape lip of one of the shirts that the victim was wearing that was pushed above her head. In 2014, about 10 years ago, the two hairs plus another female hair, which were found on Castilla, were sent to an outside mitochondrial DNA lab for testing. And at that time, John Bitroth was excluded as the donor of those three hairs. Those once the task force began investigating Gilgo and related cases, those hairs were retested in 2023 and 2024 and compared with the defendant's known sample from the buccal swab that we obtained. Regarding that male hair, the mitochondrial DNA profile developed from that male hair on the victim Castilla and the profile developed from the defendant's buccal swab are match, and specifically at a rate that would exclude 99.96% of and defendant Heuermann cannot be excluded as the contributor of that male hair on Castilla. In March of 2024, that same male hair or extract therefrom was brought to the same outside lab for nuclear DNA testing, and once again the results came back, and which found it was 4.347 times 10 to the 332 power more likely to have come from a person genetically identical to Rex Heuremann than from an unrelated individual. So that's 4.347, and then you move that decimal point over 332 times to get the odds. Again, an astronomically large number. Regarding the female hair, prior to with regard to the female hair, one of the female hairs that was recovered on Ms. Castilla, prior to Ms. Castilla's disappearance, the defendant had been living with a female individual at his home in Massapequa Park. The female individual lived with the defendant at his current residence through the summer and into the early fall of 1993, and vacated the premises approximately 2 months or so prior to Ms. Castilla's death in 1993. Once we got those two female hairs, once we knew of those two female hairs' existence, we went out and obtained a DNA profile, a buccal swab from this female. And that DNA profile that we obtained from the female buccal swab, we sent it to the mitochondrial testing lab. And again, it was able to exclude 99.98% of the North American population as the contributor of said hair, but it could not exclude the female who was living with Rex Heuremann. Again, we brought that same DNA and extract to the nuclear DNA testing, and the female's hair was tested and compared with the female hair that was recovered on the victim Castilla, and it was found to be 4.578 times 10 to the 1040th power more likely have come from a person genetically identical to the female witness who was living with Rex Heuremann in 1993, shortly before Ms. Castilla's death, than from an unrelated individual. Again, that's 4.578, and you move that decimal point over 1,040 places, and that's the number. There was an additional female hair that was recovered in 2014. That was recovered, that was compared to both the female living with Mr. Heuermann and the defendant, and we could not get a match on that, and that remains unidentified, that female hair. So we have those DNA results, and again, we were able to establish, similar to all the other cases, that at or around the time of Ms. Castilla's disappearance and murder, Rex Heuremann was living alone at the house in Massapequa Park and had unfettered access to the house, and no one else was living with him at the time. So now I want to discuss some of the newly discovered digital evidence in the case. Before I discuss that, I just wanted to clarify some of the things that we've been talking about in our earlier press conferences. You were asked I was asked specifically about smart devices and digital devices that were recovered from the home and business of the defendant in connection with this case. So I just want to catalog that for you so you get a sort of flavor of what it was. We've recovered 15 different types of cameras. We've recovered 27 computers. We've recovered 58 internal hard drives. We recovered 22 external hard drives or solid drives. We recovered 46 cell phones. We recovered 9 Wi-Fi routers, 44 SD micro cards, which are like jump routers, 17 tablets, 42 USB devices, 8 laptop cards, 4 GPS devices, 11 music devices, 36 SIM cards, 33 miscellaneous items, and 647 CD, floppy disks, or VSH or miscellaneous tapes. Again, in the months subsequent to the arrest, we've been endeavoring through our own office and with the help of the Secret Service to analyze that massive amount of data. And analysis of those devices has revealed certainly that Heuermann had a significant collection of violent, bondage, and torture pornography, which was dating back to 1994, and that material was very similar to the condition that the 2 latest victims were left in. In addition to that, it is alleged that the pornographic images that were accessed by Heuermann are consistent with the crime scenes of both Sandra Castilla and Jessica Taylor. Now, as part of our processing of the electronic devices, the task force discovered a Microsoft Word document entitled HK 2002 through 2004. That was discovered on a laptop in unallocated space, meaning there was an attempt to erase that document. But as most forensic experts know, that even when a document is erased on a device, it is the user could no longer access that document, but forensic experts using particular software can retrieve it, and this document was retrieved in this case. It was a locally created draft, which means the document itself was created on the laptop. It wasn't downloaded from the internet. The document was modified. It was originally created in 2000, and it was overwritten a number of times and modified between 2001 and 2002. Now, as alleged in the bail application, the task force believes that this is a planning document, and it was utilized by Heuermann to methodically blueprint and plan out his kills with excruciating detail. We allege that this document evinces the defendant's intent in committing the charged crimes, that his intent was specifically to locate these victims, to hunt them down, and to bring them under his control and to kill them. His motivations, meticulous planning, and clear intent is obvious. His intent was nothing short but to murder these victims. And we allege that the methodology, that the exact method by which these murders were committed, in excruciating detail in that document is in some cases identical to the methodology used to murder the 6 victims in this case. Now, I don't want to speak further on the document. I believe the document speaks for itself. So if anybody has any questions about the document, I'd be more than willing to answer them. But before turning it over for questioning, I want to reiterate, right from the very beginning of this case, from the onset of the case, the first indictment, we said that the case was not over. We said we were going to continue to investigate the case of the Gilgo 4 and find more evidence. We've done that. We've said that we were going to expand the investigation both on Gilgo and off and to investigate new cases. We've done that. And that's resulted in the 2 new charges that you see here today. So that's what we've done. That's what we've continued to do. And, my office, along with our partners, are not going to stop. This case continues. So with that, I will turn it over for questions.
Mr.
I had a
Tierney,
question
you talked
about, we'll just go, if we go right to left.
about the plan.
I didn't see it down there.
It's okay. Because of this wet document that he had, planning these murders out, why is it second degree and not first degree? Isn't that premeditated?
So first degree, I mean, there are a number of different, charging theories you could use for murder in the first degree. One of them is if you charge a murder within a specific period of time. I think it's 18 months. So if you look at, so we have 3 murder 1 charges and 6 murder 2 charges. And if you look at the time of the deaths, Sandra Castilla, 93, Jessica Taylor, 2003, Maureen Brainerd Barnes, 2007, Melissa Barthelemy, 2009, Megan Waterman, 2010, and Amber Costello, 2010. Those last 3, Barthelemy, Costello, and Waterman, fit within that one. The other ones, unfortunately, fall outside, so we're unable to bring that charge with regard to those, the other 5, the other 3 victims. So that's why it's different, just sort of the way New York State law is set up.
And I wanted to ask about how this expands the search now, because now with this indictment, the earliest murder now changes to 1993, which gives it many more years than we had before. So how does this expand the search? How are you guys expanding this to find out who other victims that are possibly involved in it?
Well, I think first and foremost, it expands the information for the public and the media. It doesn't change anything for us. We were, I think in March of this year, we learned of this document. We have been investigating other things. So again, my confidence in saying that we were going to move off of the Gilgo 4 to the new body and off of Gilgo itself was based upon my knowledge of the investigation. So that's something that we've been doing for a while now. It's just sort of become publicly known.
How do you know Sandra?
We have no information with regard to that.
Enough of that. So the alleged murders happening between 93 and 2010. Just how alarming is this sweeping timeline you're looking at?
Well, I think this whole case in general is alarming. And I think it underscores that which we already knew, that we have an individual who we are alleging, and again, these are allegations, meticulously planned and executed 6 separate murders. So that in and of itself it speaks for itself.
And there are other victims named in the court documents. Are more charges on the way?
So we're going to continue. Again, we're going to continue to investigate, and we'll talk about whatever other investigation we're undergoing when and if we bring those charges.
And Mr. Tierney, in your document, you mentioned the words torture, bondage, violence, and also Stockholm syndrome. Is there any evidence to reveal that perhaps Rex Heuremann took these women or any of them captive in his home, attempted to brainwash them, put him under his
Well, that's what that document contains, and again, that speaks for itself. We'll make arguments with regard to that, and at the trial. The specific reference to Stockholm syndrome, that pertains to a book Mindhunter by a former FBI profiler, John. His name, John Douglas. His name escaped me for a moment. And so we know there are specific page references to that book and stuff such as a sexual substitution, torture, and also Stockholm syndrome. And our argument, it's our allegation that the defendant was referencing that Mindhunter book not to gain insight into his own behavior or to modify or change it, but rather to use it as a means of improving his methodology and avoid capture by the authorities.
Was that book found? Sir, what about Valerie Mack? I know she, I believe, was found out in Vanderbilt in a similar way that she was murdered.
So you have, and if you go back to that document, they talk about DS or dump sites, Mill Road, Halsey Manor Road, and Mill Road. It intersects with each other. So, and if you look at the method of the crime scene, very similar to Jessica Taylor. That's what we could say now. We'll continue to work the case, and if we're able to develop more information and get to the point where we can charge it, we'll talk about it. You had real question?
Yes, I was wondering. You mentioned that book. Did Heuermann have that book in his?
So he references specific page numbers in the doc, or specific page numbers are represented in the document, which match up to a particular edition of the Mindhunter book. The Mindhunter book was not found in Heuermann's house, but there was another serial killer book written by John Douglas found in his house, and I think that's in the bail document.
I just think, obviously, you probably knew this already, but uncovering a lot of new details that we didn't know as far as dismemberment, that he was younger when he allegedly killed, that, of course, this document is explosive. Just talk to me, looking at the bigger picture profile of a serial killer, what was investigators, your thoughts when you were uncovering these new sort of details that
We had no thoughts. We look at the evidence and we follow the evidence. We know that criminals in general, people in general, their modus operandi change through the course of their life. Obviously there was no dismemberment with regard to the original Gilgo 4, but there is with regard to, unfortunately, Ms. Taylor. So, it's just, and again, everyone says, are you expanding the investigation? And we're doing it under the auspices of the Gilgo Task Force. But each new case that we look at, each new crime scene we look at it independent of everything, and then we make a determination. Where does that evidence leads us? Does it lead us to one particular suspect or another particular suspect? But we don't, get a list and say, okay, we're gonna automatically assume that certain people committed certain crimes. That's not the way to do it. That's not the way we do it. We look at and again, in the bail document, you talk about, if you want to know, and this is from John Douglas's book that the document quotes, if you want to know who the painter is, look at the painting. And that is something that Douglas used to tell his investigators. And that pertains specifically to, if you want to know who committed the crime, look at the crime scene and the condition of the victim. And again, if you do that in this case, we would allege that the crime scene and the victims match very much with a lot of first off, the document that we found, and also a lot of the defendant's internet activities and the bondage and torture type of pornography that he was interested in obsessively searching.
Do you believe at this point that the murders were committed in his house? And could you also talk about the note he put in his in that document that was referenced in court?
I'm familiar with the note. I'm sorry.
There was I thought the ADA talked about something about, he said, if you do certain things equals more playtime.
Oh, okay. So yeah. So that is referenced. What is the specific quote? Okay, more rest, more playtime. And so basically, what he's talking about is, well, what the allegation and what we would allege is the more rested, the participants are, the more you can get done. And he also talks about or the document also talks about crime scene, and if you're sleepy, spending too much time in the crime scene or your lack of sleep, your chances of making mistakes increase. So again, there's a lot of evincing of intent in that document.
And what about where these murders took place? Any?
So there's, under some of the considerations was in the document, it writes about tape not good, use push pins. And then once we received that document, we went back into the house and looking at the paneling in the downstairs basement area, we were able to look at it through infrared light. We were to establish a cordon off area where adhesive had been placed. So we're going to make certain arguments with regard to that at the time of trial. We also found an area where there were push pins into the drop ceiling.
Does he make any specific references to victims in the manifesto?
There's a T1, a T1 and T2. We would argue that stands for target 1 and target 2. Target 1, it says Megan with a question mark, and target 2, it says black, and then in parentheses unknown, I believe. You could look at the bail document. That pertains to specific victims. If you look at the timing of it, it wouldn't seem to pertain to Megan Waterman because it's too early in time. There is also a reference to phone numbers of potential victims. We've searched, and we usually block out our phone numbers. We kept that in the document because we've come to an impasse with regard to those phone numbers. So if any members of the public have information with regard to those phone numbers, we would certainly be receptive to receive that.
So Valerie Mack, her death was mentioned twice in this latest bail document. Is Rex officially a suspect in Valerie Mack's death?
I think that would be fair to say, yeah.
And isn't Bill Road where her remains were found?
Yes. Yeah.
Taylor was close to the
Valerie Mack was. If you go down, you have Halsey Manor Road, and then Mill Road is like further, like as you said, away from the expressway, I believe, or the exit to the expressway. But in that same area, and Valerie Mack was a little bit further into the woods.
Ray, have you found any evidence at all about what he might have been up to in the last decade or so? Or did he just stop in 2010? How many other missing persons cases or unsolved crimes do you now have to look at, given where you are?
So the quick answer to that, yes, we have. We're still developing that, and obviously, none of that is actionable. And with regard to the missing cases, we're looking at all of them, and but we're looking at them not necessarily in the context of any particular defendant, including this one. We're looking at them separate and apart as missing cases, and with the universe of information that we have, not only in this case but other cases, how can we work towards solving some of these cold cases?
That's 30 years of crime.
Yes.
Did the new search of North Sea uncover any evidence that has helped the case?
So I would say that it was, as I've said all along, it's a necessary investigative step. It's a huge area, and we felt that we needed to do that at some point in time. We wanted to do it before the summer, and the brush got real thick. So we didn't know logistically how we were going to do it. We knew it was going to be difficult, but you don't not do something because it's difficult. And again, fortunately, our partners in the New York State Police, the Suffolk County Police as always, and the NYPD, their canine units went out and they did a fantastic job. We have so much gratitude to them for helping us out, but no new bodies were found.
Attorney, just following up on Greg's question, do you believe both the search going on in the basement with what you found in the manifesto, that the basement was a location where the crimes could have been committed?
So again, it doesn't matter what I believe. It matters what we can prove. This is, a significant investigative step. This was a significant investigative finding, and we'll continue to develop those things. We'll get to you next. I'm sorry. Could you say that again? Whoever said what they said? You said, oh, sorry.
I was just wondering, in the basement, I
Yeah.
know it was the new search, were there any specific findings that could relate to actual blood, hair, human remains of any kind?
Well, as we've said all along, if you look at the DNA evidence and the trace evidence that we've done, it doesn't happen overnight. So there's additional testing that we're undergoing. We just have to see the results of that. Well, you always see suspicious things, but in any case. But is it is it a stain of something benign, or is it an investigatively significant stain? Only our forensic scientists can tell that after a lot of work. Well, we've in our bail letter, and we're pretty much constrained by our bail letter to what we could publicly disclose. We found other information, which will be disclosed at the time of trial. So we're not gonna get into it, and that's not to say they exist. We're just not gonna get into it. We can't. Ethically, I'm really enjoying talking about it.
Can you tell us when the document on the laptop was first discovered, and is that what prompted the research of the house?
Again, in any effective investigation, it's never just one thing. Certainly that was something that was significant and led us in among other things in that direction. That document, I believe we recovered it in March here. So fairly recently, and certainly given the sprawling history of this case.
And you said he had a lot of images and videos of torture porn on his devices. Were any of them his own victims?
We saw no evidence of that.
Could you speak about his profile? Like, was one set of murders different from another set, and does that indicate that he was sort of changing his tactics over the years, or is this all consistent when you look at all the evidence so far?
Well, I think if you look at a macro view or a micro view, these are young women tragically lost their lives and were murdered as a result of a person who meticulously planned their murders. If you look at the earlier as opposed to the later murders, it does appear that there was some changes. Exactly what happened with regard to the Gilgo 4, we're foreclosed about knowing a lot of that stuff because they were skeletonized. Jessica and Sandra were more recently found, so we were able to glean more information from the crime scene. So, I guess it just depends what your perspective is on with regard to all that.
Was the March 7th discovery of the Word document the evidence that caused the second search of the house?
Well, as I think I previously, it was a impetus, but in any good investigation, there's usually a number of different things that cause that.
Was it the main one?
I would say it was a significant one, and it was also an impetus to go back out into those areas and search with the dogs. And Manorville and North Sea and every place else we went.
With these allegations that happened probably in 93, it could open the possibility of other murders like Karen Vergata or other people who have been killed.
So as we said, Karen Vergata, her remains were found partially in Jones Beach and partially in I think by Atlantic Beach across from Blue Point on Fire Island. So all those cases, every person who was tragically murdered in Suffolk County, they're in play.
Ray, can you say a quick word about how you're going to bring this to trial? Are you going to, is there like a cutoff point where you're just going to try the 6, or you're just going to keep going and eventually put them on trial?
So we're not going to stop. We can't stop. We owe that to the victims. That's the least we can do. So we understand we have a court case. We understand we'll go forward with that, but we're not going to stop. So however that works, however we need to do that, we're going to do it. We have a great team. We have a great team of investigators. We have a great team of prosecutors, and you do what you have to do in this business. We will get it done. It's daunting. There's a lot, but we'll get it done.
Are you still going through those dozens of digital devices?
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's like just reading off just gives, and a lot of them are encrypted, so that when you have an encrypted device, that attempt to get in is ongoing. You're trying to crack the code, so to speak. So that's an ongoing effort.
Has there been any attempt?
I'm not going to discuss. I'm not going to discuss that again because my speculation, my thoughts don't matter. What I can prove in court, speak through an indictment. I will talk about these 6 because these are allegations at this point. We look forward to proving those allegations, but they are mere allegations at this point.
Has there been any attempts recently to talk to Rex or his lawyers and say, hey, look, can you just tell us who you killed? And
So-
just ask him to come forward?
So I am, he's represented by competent counsel. I cannot ethically reach out to the defendant, so I wouldn't. And even if I was inclined, I cannot. So we'll speak through his attorney. And, there's in any case, there's always a dialogue between the defense and the prosecution, or at least there should be. And, myriad of topics are discussed on a daily basis, which should remain private between the parties.
Has any of the evidence that you found so far, you might have another suspect question, whether someone who lived there or a family member or something, could be someone on your radar?
So if you look at the evidence in this case, and it points that the defendant acted alone, and then if you look at that planning document, that makes it even more apparent that the 6 charged cases were meticulously planned, and they were done at a time when the defendant knew he would have both access to the victims and other people would not be around.
Thank you.
Okay. I believe one of the victims are going to speak, so we're going to give the victim, some of the victims, whoever likes to speak, the opportunity to do that. Thank you very much.
Lots of information, folks, and we're going to be hearing from Gloria Allred, the attorney who represents the victims' families and perhaps some of the victims here. But we have a lot to discuss, and I'm going to go over the charging documents at a later date. I have to review them, but I got to warn you, they are going to be graphic, ladies and gentlemen, not for the faint of heart. We have decapitations, disfigurements, mutilations, and so forth. It's a lot to go over. So I got to review it and then see how I could proceed forward with it. All right, this is attorney Gloria Allred.
All right, good. Thank you. Good morning. I'm attorney Gloria Allred. I represent the family of one of the latest victims for whom there has been an indictment of the defendant, and that is Jessica Taylor. I am the only attorney representing the family of Jessica Taylor and the only one authorized to speak about Jessica Taylor.
A dig
In
at John
addition,
Ray? A dig at John Ray, you
I
think?
represent the families of 3 other victims, Megan and Melissa and Maureen. Some of the family members of those other victims are also present today, so I'd ask you just to raise your hand if you are a family member of Megan, a family or friend of Melissa, and a family member or friend of Maureen. With me for Jessica Taylor is Jessica's mom, Elizabeth Backheel. And she, under the circumstances, has asked me to read her statement. Following this statement, Jasmine Robinson, who is the cousin of Jessica, will read her statement. I also have and will show you 2 photos of Jessica. This is a statement of Jessica's mom, Elizabeth Backheel. Jessica was my daughter. She was loving and compassionate and so funny. She loved to make people laugh. She could always make people laugh. She tried very hard in school. Jessica had 2 brothers, and they would always play together. She and her brothers were very close. Jessica loved riding her bike. She loved playing board games, Monopoly, Chutes and Ladders, Candyland. She loved playing cards, especially spades and rummy. She loved cartoons. She loved to sing. She would sing along with the radio and was in the choir at church. She loved to cuddle with me and her brothers when she was younger. They would pile on the couch and watch TV together. I miss how she called me Mommy and Mama. It's a tragedy she never had children. Jessica would have made a great mother. She loved kids and loved working with them. She worked in the inner city with the kids in summer camp as an aide. She loved supporting kids and helping to take care of them. My family and I would like to thank the law enforcement and the district attorney's office for all of their hard and diligent work on my daughter Jessica's case. Jessica, my darling daughter, you will never be forgotten. You will always be missed. You will forever be in our hearts. And this is a photo of Jessica when she was how old? 5 or 6 years old.
Gloria?
And 16. This is a photo of Jessica when she was approximately 16 years old. And this is her mom's favorite photo. I will have a copy of Elizabeth's statement available after the press conference for you. And in addition, I'll have the photos up here. And now I would like to introduce Jasmine Robinson, Jessica's cousin. And also, if you would be kind enough to raise your hand, also present is another cousin of Jessica who will not make a statement, and that is Violet Swagger. Violet, would you be kind enough just to raise your hand, please? Thank you. Best. Couldn't hear you.
Can you just spell her mother's name for us?
Oh, her mother's name is on here, but I'm happy to spell it. Elizabeth Backheel, capital B-A-C-Z-K-I-E-L. Thank you for asking. Jasmine.
Jessica was a beautiful person. Simple memories, such as sitting down to dinner together, drawing pictures, dancing, jump rope, and sleepovers with her and my sister are memories that I cherish. I was lucky to share my childhood with her, and I wish every day that we got the chance to create more memories. When I think of her, I see her smile first, big and bright, lighting up her face, beaming through her beautiful eyes. Jess was somebody that I looked up to. She was a force, one of the strongest women that I know, with a heart of gold. She was, and still is, loved immeasurably. When her life was stolen, a light went out. She is forever missed. This year has been 21 years since she was taken from us, longer than the chance that she got to be alive. I can't express what this day means after waiting and hoping for answers. I'm incredibly grateful to the entire task force for the dedication and integrity that they have provided and put into this investigation. I have full faith that they will continue to provide answers for other victims and their families.
They will not be taking questions, but if you have a few for me, feel free to ask. Pardon me, I couldn't hear.
Could you just, Jasmine, spell her name, please?
Yes, Jasmine Robinson, Jasmine Robinson, Robinson.
Ms. Allard, just their reaction, if you can, to finding out about, this new indictment.
Obviously, it's very difficult for them emotionally. They've been waiting 21 years for answers. And they're hoping that justice is on its way.
What was it like to sit in the same courtroom as Rex Heuremann?
They were present, that is, Jasmine, Elizabeth, and Violet were present in court with me this morning. It was difficult for them to see the person who was accused of murdering, second-degree murder of their loved one, but they reached down inside of themselves and found the courage to be there because they are the voice of Jessica. They have the memories that they carry of Jessica, and they want to be there for Jessica, and that's why they were there.
Gloria, would any of your other clients from the Brainerd Barnes family want to share their thoughts at this time?
Does anyone have any further thoughts? No one is going to make an additional statement this morning or after the press conference, but thank you for asking. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Okay, your other clients from who we met the last time, the Brainerd Barnes family, were asking about that.
Yeah, they have no additional statement at this time because they want the focus to be on Jessica today, which is understandable, but they are here in support of Jessica as well as their family member for whom there has also been an indictment.
Could you spell Violet Swagger's name for us, please?
Could you please repeat your question a little
Could you
more
spell
loudly?
Violet Swagger's name, please? Violet Swagger. Could you spell?
Yeah, Violet Swagger. Violet. Swagger. Swager. That's correct. Anything further?
Thank you.
Okay, and then in that case, as I say, I will have a copy of Jasmine's statement, a copy of Elizabeth's statement. My
Heartbreaking.
contact information is at the top of the statement.
Are you serious?
What? Heartbreaking, ladies and gentlemen. I'm looking at something on Newsday TV, and it looks like Rex Heuermann's attorney is making a statement. So I'm going to go to Newsday TV real quick. Just give me 2 seconds. Hold on. I just want to see if this is going to be live. Give me 2 seconds. Give me 2 seconds. Hold on. Give me 2 seconds. A lot of information to unpack, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of information. Unbelievable investigation. Let me just go to Newsday TV because if this is Rex Heuermann's attorney talking, I want to hear what he has to say. All right, yes. So let me back it up. Hold on. Let me get this. I know you guys probably don't want to hear from him, but I would be interesting. It would be interesting to hear what he has to say. So let me get it to the part where he's talking. Michael Brown, attorney for Rex Heuremann. Here we go.
We're now going to Heuermann's attorney, defense attorney, Michael Brown.
Earlier today, we were arraigned on the new indictment. The district attorney's office provided us with not only the indictment, but apparently another set of discovery documents. I think it was a flash drive, as well as other documents that I'm not aware of. We just received them a few hours ago, so I can't, it's going to be hard for me to comment on what was said this morning and what was said at the press conference by the district attorney earlier. I always try to be candid with everybody and respond as much as I can. Unfortunately, when I don't have an opportunity to review information and discovery, it's very hard from our standpoint to actually give intelligent answers. So I'll do the best I can in terms of what we have so far.
Okay, so essentially he's saying he has not seen the bail application, as Ray Tierney refers to it, the new indictments, the 2 new indictments. He does not have access to that. So his answers are going to be brief here, but I do want to hear what he has to say.
Does anybody have any questions?
In the days prior to this, what was your concern as they went back to this home and other places?
Well, they executed another search warrant at the home. I don't know what they discovered, if anything. They were in the home for the first go round for almost 2 weeks. I don't know what they discovered. I did hear the district attorney talking about some push pins and things of that nature. Again, I don't know what relationship that has with the case, and we'll find that out as we go through the discovery that was provided to us.
Describe what went in court and the response.
I'm sorry?
Describe what happened in court and the response to.
Well, he was arraigned on a new indictment. They are alleging 2 additional murders. And again, this is the first time we're hearing about it. It's the first time we saw the bail package, which gives some details of what they're alleging. So it's hard for me to comment. Without looking at documents and without speaking to my client and looking into the evidence, it wouldn't be fair for me to comment at this point in time. I really need to look at everything.
And Mr. Brown, I'm sorry, I just got here. Was it already asked about that Microsoft Word document? I heard you saying like you have to actually see it, but when you initially heard about it and the detail, how detailed it is of a possible.
Are you talking about the 2 pages that were attached to the bail application?
No, I'm talking about the Word document that they were.
I don't know which I don't know which document you're referring to.
Did kind of a manifesto describing,
Yeah,
linking it to.
It was attached to the back of the bail application.
So that's all you have.
I do not know if those 2 pages were part of another 100 pages. I don't know where that is from. In other words, I don't know whose document.
All right, these documents that they're referring to here is we heard Ray Tierney talk about a backed up hard drive on a Palm Pilot. Now, you'll show your age if those of you in the chat remember what a Palm Pilot was. It was the very early days of handheld computers, and I had one myself. Rex Heuremann happens to be the same age as me. He's 60, and I had a Palm Pilot, and I thought it was like you were super cool if you had one of these things. And so he backed it up and then must have erased it and then erased other documents that things that he documented. And they were able to, through computer forensics, extract the documents that he erased. So that's what the reporter is asking him about. They took out 46 additional cell phones from that second warrant. 9 micro SD, 17 tablets, 42 USBs, 36 SIM cards, and various other items that I wasn't able to write down because he was saying them so fast. But I'm going to go over the bail application with you guys in a separate live stream. But let's listen in to more Rex Heuermann's attorney get peppered with some questions from reporters outside the courthouse.
Document or computer that stems from. So I understand the district attorney has this document, and I know they're putting it up, and I know they're highlighting it, and I know they're showing everybody. I don't want to comment because I don't know any of these things. It's unfair when you hand somebody something and say, okay, here you go, defend it. I can't do that. Once I look at it, once I look at all the discovery that I just received, once we can see where the relationship of those documents is with other documents, how big that document is.
This looks like it's a piece from the bail application, a wash body inside and okay. I'm not sure why they have this body prep thing up, but this is something that looks like from the bail application.
And also where it's from and who
Oh yeah, this is definitely from the bail application.
whose computer that's from. That would give us much more information.
Your thoughts and your reaction today, knowing that he's been charged second-degree murder with 2 other additional victims, now it's 26.
Yeah, listen, one murder is obviously horrific, and it's a difficult thing to defend. Now we're at 6. And I don't know, based on what the district attorney said, he insinuated to some extent that there may be more forthcoming. What we do is more reactive than proactive. They indict, and then we have to look at everything, and then we mount the defense. So there's nothing for us to do in that sense. But the mere fact of additional victims and additional murders, and that they're alleging that our client did it, it's obviously troubling, and it adds to what we have to do to defend him. Yes.
How is Rex Heuremann doing?
Well, he is the same he was from day one, which is he's indicated he is not guilty of these charges, and he wants his day in court. Now, there's obviously new victims that are allegedly they're trying to tie to him. We didn't have much of a conversation about that because we just did the arraignment and then they ship him back to the jail.
Does he still maintain his innocence to you?
He does. He does.
Does he say does he deny that document is his?
We didn't. You're talking about an arraignment where we got an indictment and we entered a not guilty plea. We didn't have any discussions about anything other than there's new charges.
Sounds like it's a lot more to go through now.
It is. It's a lot more to go to. And listen, it's just from what I read in the indictment, it's certainly inconsistent with that MO that the government was trying to portray of the burlap bags and prostitutes in Gilgo Beach. Now they've said there's this whole other area that they're claiming he's responsible for. I need to look at the evidence. We need to look at the evidence.
It's very detailed what they put out, everything that he was looking for them supplies to, what he was going to do next because he missed, that first time doing it. Do you find this disturbing and hard to kind of defend?
Well, a couple of things. Number one is you said what he put out. So you've already made that assumption, and I know nothing about it. You've already made that assumption that he's the one who drafted it and he's the one who created it. I don't know that. You have a document that's attached to a bail package.
Typical defense
from a
attorney.
Computer they claim was in his home that's 23 years old. But that's all I know, right? Now, is it disturbing to read that? I mean, how would it not be for anybody, right? But I don't know what relevance it has, and I don't know if he created it, and I don't know if there's more, because we talked about excerpts as opposed to it could be 2 pages of 60, and the other 58 pages kind of bring it into.
Let me let you guys know what the reporter was referencing. The statement that District Attorney Ray Tierney said that the torture and violence and the Stockholm Syndrome that Rex talked about on documents that he wrote and that they captured and recovered, talking about torture and documenting former FBI John Douglas's book. That's what the reporter just hit him with, and basically in an official attorney fashion, in typical defense attorney fashion, he said, "That's what's being alleged. We have no proof that my client penned this information, but there's so much more to talk about, and I'm going to have to wrap it up in a few minutes. So I'm going to get to this, and I'll go over some of the reporters' questions. I have actually 2 pages that I wrote down.
To some sense, I don't know, right? So of course everybody wants to leap to that end result and say this is horrific and he's guilty and this is horrible. I always, as a defense attorney, look the other way, and I always say there's a presumption of innocence. I want to see everything, and then we can have a further discussion, and that's why we have a court.
Mr. Brown, what are your thoughts on the expansion? Again, I stepped in late, so I apologize. What are your thoughts on the expansion of time, saying that the prosecution now saying that this may have expanded earlier, all the way to the early 90s?
Listen, the district attorney has a job to do, and they're doing their job. In terms of, well, now you went, again, it went beyond this couple of years at Gilgo Beach, a very common theme and plan, right? We had Gilgo Beach, prostitution, you had the, a year or two, you had burlap bags, you had a very concise and confined MO. Now they're going way beyond that. So it's not consistent. I think clearly it's inconsistent. And the first thing that came to mind for us is, Bitroth, who's a convicted murderer in this county. The district attorney's office was focused on Bitroth for that Costilla murder. But I don't have any evidence.
So the interesting thing he was saying with the evidence, he's saying that 2 hairs, I think this was Costilla, and the 1 hair on Mr. Taylor linked back to the client, to Heuermann.
Right, I saw that in the bail application. Again, I say, well, 1 hair, does it sound reasonable that 1 hair is going to be on a victim if you actually killed her? I would suggest no, but I don't know. Bitroth, and it goes back to, was Bitroth involved in this? That's Bitroth's MO. If you look at Bitroth's 2 murders that he was convicted of. And at the same time, the government, the district attorney's office then, the deputy bureau chief said, Bitroth is the Gilgo murderer. So we can talk about this and keep going, but without me looking at the evidence, it's hard to really comment on the specifics. Okay, anything else?
Has Rex had any contact with his wife since learning about the pending indictment?
No, because we just found out about it a couple of days ago, and I know she's not home, so I know she hasn't visited him, but I don't know if they had a phone conversation yet. Okay. The mindset is, I guess I got to do a lot more work. It is what we take it again.
Okay, the reporters asked, is Rex in contact with his wife since these charges have been updated from 4 murders to 6? His answer was no, or unknown. And then they asked him, do you have, now that he's charged with, 2 additional murders, what's your position on this? And he jokingly said back to them, now I have a lot more work. You're damn right, you got a lot of work, and it's going to be hard to refute this evidence that we heard these gazillion, quadrillion percentage chances. The Rex Heuermann's hair commingled, the Lacard's exchange principle that we talk about with Ed Wallace all the time. They have Rex Heuermann's hair out in Manorville with our victim here, our new victim, Sandra Castilla and Jessica Taylor. And we heard from District Attorney Ray Tierney about decapitating. Jessica Taylor was decapitated, head cut off, hands, arms severed, and they found her, one of her hands and arms severed, arms and skull found 8 years later on Gilgo Beach along Ocean Parkway and other areas out, going as far out as to Blue Point, Long Island. She was laying on top of a surgical drape. These are the words of the district attorney. I'm looking at my notes. Jessica Taylor was found laying on her back on a surgical drape, decapitated, ladies and gentlemen. 2013 DNA results. In 2013, they came back with they got DNA results, and the numbers were astronomical. Rex, after he committed the crimes out in Manorville, now that he's alleged to have committed, he went and purchased searched to purchase a light-colored Chevy Avalanche. Now he's looking to say, holy crap, they have a witness that saw a dark colored Avalanche. Let me now go and get a white or a light blue, they said. The police commissioner was not present, the new police commissioner. I was surprised at that. Sandra Castilla was found by hunters. She was also laying on her back, and she had multiple sharp force, blunt force, and sharp force trauma and mutilation about her body, Sandra, and she was mutilated. Her breasts, her vaginal area, mutilated by sharp force trauma, according to the district attorney. Again, Rex Heuermann's hairs, 2 hairs plus a female hair that was residing or living with Rex Heuermann. They didn't say Asa Ellerup. This must predate their marriage with Asa Ellerup. They did the outside laboratory with the mitochondrial DNA, and it excluded Bitroth from any doings with Sandra Castilla, her murder. I'm just recapping. Sure, I'm missing some things, but I'm just recapping quickly because, again, ladies and gentlemen, I'm at work and I'm trying to do the best that I can, and I got to go in a few minutes. He talked about the percentages of the hair being Rex Heuermann and his female, which now we all want to know. I want to know, who the hell is this female, and how much did she have to do with helping him? So I'm going to go to the reporters' comments, and the reporters asked Suffolk County District Attorney Ray Tierney, was Rex Heuermann a suspect? Is Rex Heuermann a suspect in the murder of Valerie Mack, which would make a 7th murder victim on Rex Heuermann? And he said yes, that Rex Heuermann is a suspect in the murder of Valerie Mack. Did the search of the North Sea and the search in out in Manorville result in any additional evidentiary value? And he said no. He said, but we wanted to get those searches done as our checklist before the growth came back this year. So they wanted to do that, and he thanked NYPD for helping him. He talked about the dismemberments and his writings, the serial killer book by John Douglas, the former FBI profiler. These murders of these 2 girls happened in 1993 and 2010. And they're asking, the reporters were asking, are there going to be more charges for more victims? And he said, we don't know at this time, that they are going to continue and never stop investigating. They talked about the Stockholm Syndrome. And look, some of the most shocking things that I heard today is there's a potential that Rex Heuermann held these girls, or not these girls particularly, but some of his victims may have been held and kept. It was very vague on what they said, but there is a potentiality in that basement. There was a gun room with all those 177 rifles, and then there was a sub room. There was 2 separate rooms in that basement. The gun room, the vault that they called it, and then we saw a picture of a mattress with a tarp down in one of the other rooms. There is a possibility that Rex Heuermann tortured and held captive these victims inside his basement. They said that he took apart a piece of paneling, and with an alternate light source was able to see writing on the wall. Very shocking, ladies and gentlemen, very shocking. Was Rex doing what? Oh, they asked him, do you know what Rex was doing after 2010? And the DA answered yes. So they know what he was doing. Some of the other questions, and I apologize, I had scribbled these out. Do you know if the crime happened in Rex's basement? And he said, it's not what we know or suspect, it's what we think we can prove. And those were the district attorney's exact answers. I wrote them down exactly. The reporter said, do you know if these crimes happened in Rex's basement? And he said, it's not what I know or think or suspect. It's what I can prove in the court of law. So, oh, and then right after that, the next question was there any porn that he saved? Now, they talked about his violent pornographic images that he kept on his different devices. And it was a great question that the reporter asked. And I'm talking fast because I got to get out of here. any chance that was there any torture porn of any of these victims? And he answered no. And then another reporter asked, are you going to stop now that you have 6 charges of murder against Rex Heuremann? And he said, we are not going to stop, and we will get it done. We will not stop, and we will get it done. Are you still going through his digital devices? And the answer was, oh, yeah. They are going through still, as we speak, all of his digital devices. Can you also talk to Rex Heuremann now that he's, this is another question. Can you talk to Rex Heuremann and ask him to confess? And he said, I cannot talk to Rex Heuremann because he's represented by an attorney, Michael Brown, who we just heard from. I'll show him again on the screen. Rex Heuremann is being represented by this attorney. He said, but he could talk to the attorney and ask through the attorney if his client wants to confess. But the probability of that is no, as we heard Michael Brown just now talking and basically refuting all of the allegations against him. I'm going to just go to some of the other things that I wrote down. These percentages of the possibility of the hairs being tied into Rex Heuremann are astronomical, the numbers. But again, the probable cause affidavit, it's called a bail application. I don't know why Suffolk County calls it a bail application. It's basically an indictment. It's not a bail application. He's not getting bail. He's never going to get out. There's no chance that Rex Heuremann can get out. The 2 new victims is Jessica Taylor. She was 20 years old. We saw pictures from Gloria Allred from her mom of when she was little, 6 years old, and then when she was about 16. Family members spoke on behalf of Jessica Taylor, and it was heartbreaking to hear and see these. And you know, friends, I talk about the victims and the families all the time. This is what I'm talking about when I say the victims' families. That's what you saw on the stage after all the hoopla with the district attorney. But there's an astronomical amount of evidence. And I mean, I'm going to look at these charging documents, and I'm going to tell you, if you are going to be in for those charging documents, it's going to be difficult at best to listen to. But I want to thank you all for being here. I want to go to some of the highlighted and starred messages. I have a meeting in 15 minutes. So at 12:45, I got to be in a meeting, so I got to go. Let me just say thank you to all these starred messages. Thank you for becoming a member of Starred Madam Butterfly. Thank you to Crazy About Cats for the super chat. Mystique, thank you for becoming a member again. Tara, Sandra Castilla, Justice, you were so beautiful. She was. All of these victims were beautiful in their own ways. Thank you for becoming a new member. I appreciate that. Thank you for gifting 5 memberships, Jennifer. Schmitty, thank you for always being here. She says, so sorry, I'm going to miss this, DutyRon and Ed. You were both gold. It's going to be a hard work to work while it's going on. Have a good day. But Schmitty was still here. I saw her in and out of the chat anyways. Muddy Paws, thank you for the super chat. She says, do you know how they first identified him? If it just said that an officer found him in a database. Was that CODIS? He was not in CODIS because he didn't have any criminal history. So the way he was found is through his DNA from the pizza crust. They matched it up to crime scene DNA, and Rex Heuremann was a match based on his pizza crust that they recovered in New York City and matched it up through that DNA process. But hair and fibers are, again, what got him, as Ed Wallace said, back into trouble again and is charged. Muddy Paws, thank you for, if they used Awesome, they have own in his house, IGG team. So I wonder if it was the IGG case. We'll know more when I start reading that probable cause affidavit. Thank you so much for becoming a YouTube member, Star Lacey. Thank you, Lauren, for the super chat. And it says, I was not expecting Costilla. Yeah, I mean, none of us were. We were expecting Jessica Taylor and Valerie Mack. But as we heard, Valerie Mack is also, Rex Heuremann is a suspect in Valerie Mack. Thank you for becoming a member. Thank you for the super gifting memberships. Annie, you're so kind and generous. Thank you. Thank you. Why can't I see? Oh, Wellenox Lieb. Thank you for the gifting of the membership. Appreciate that. All right. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for being here. Thank you for hanging out in the chat. The replay viewers, the moderators, thank you to Joey Brooklyn, ATS News, Black Rose, Dawn Marie, all the great mods that are here and keeping the chat classy. I appreciate you guys. I thank you. I got to get to work. I got now 5-10 minutes to prepare for my meeting. I will see you guys very soon, possibly tonight. I don't know. I'm going to look at the charging documents and we're going to go over it. I'm going to grab maybe an attorney. I might ask Attorney Melanie Little, but she's very busy with the John O'Keefe trial. But I'm going to go over the charging documents and try to get an attorney to come on with us, and we will discuss this case. Thank you so much for being here. And as I always like to end these live streams, God bless the world, God bless the United States of America, and God bless each and every one of us here in the chat. But especially these victims and their families. We send them strength, prayers, and positive vibes. Thank you for joining. Thank you for hitting the thumbs up and subscribing. Thank you for sharing it. And thank you for being classy. I'll see you soon. God bless, guys.